Hello, this is Iron Designer, and I thought we'd just have a little bit of fun this time with a little bit of coding. I haven't really seen anyone code this up before the way I'm going to do it, but I think it's going to be kind of fun and a little bit interesting. And I'm basing it on this book that I found at archive.org, so anybody can check out this book on numerology. And I just thought it's interesting because computer science deals with numbers, and this kind of spirituality and mysticism also is dealing with numbers and the significance of numbers and the meaning of numbers. And the title says the hidden meaning of numbers and letters. So I began flipping through these pages to check it out and see what's in numerology. I'd seen a couple videos on numerology in the past, and I just wanted to take a look at a textbook. This is just one of many that I found. And it kind of goes through the table of contents and some topics, introduction. But as you get further along in this subject of religion and numerology, it finally gets to about the midway point of the book. I'll just click here and maybe back up a little bit. Here we go. I'll back up a little more. So it gets to, after it talks about words and things, it gets here into this prelude to numbers. And the interesting thing is that it assigns a number to the letter in the order that the letters are presented. So A would be 1, B would be 2. And then, very interestingly, in this chart, what it does for each of the numbers, and then these are considered special numbers, these double numbers, 11, 22, 33, and so on. Here it describes, say, the personality and the characteristic of a number. So even number 10, when you add the numbers together, it's a number 1. And just going back to this, for example, say the number 1, it's positives, it's negatives, and it's destructives. So each one has those characteristics, a positive, a negative, and a destructive. And I just thought it'd be interesting to just review. This is a topic that could be coded into a computer program. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the executable that I created and test it out, and then we're going to see how I coded it up. So here we are back again on my desktop. I'll just run the executable from my desktop. And again, all that I've done is just one interpretation. So definitely everyone that wants to attempt this project, you're likely going to come up with something different because there's a lot of subjective nuances in here when you're coding, and your interpretation of numerology and your interpretation of the book, and there may be other books that you might use as reference. They're going to come up with different ways of looking at it. So this here is just my console screen of my numerology code. And I'm just going to run it for you first, and then later I'll show you how I wrote the code inside here to try to match up to what we read in the book. So basically what it is, it's just a title, just called Numerology 2. Actually, it's probably like Numerology 3. And you could put up to 255 characters in there, just in a block of letters, no spaces. And I did mine in console. You might want to do yours kind of in a more Windows kind of a thing with an input box or something, and an output box. But here, just in console, you could put in a word or a name, like, and I'm not using anyone's name in particular. I'm just making up a name that I can think of, say Tabitha, and then you press enter. And what it does is it just lists at the top the letters, like in the book, and the number associated with that letter corresponding. And then the program basically is just verifying that it understood you put in the word Tabitha in small case, like the instructions say. The computer program will convert it to uppercase Tabitha. It counts the letters. There are 7 letters in the name Tabitha. And remember, my program just limits you to 255. And then it breaks it down that it tells you that the first character, T, matches to value 20. And so if you look here in my chart, T is 20. And it just goes all the way on down to the 7th letter is A. That's value of 1. Okay? So that's what this is telling you here. Then it's telling you that the values in the string as follows. Initially, it's 0 because it hasn't yet computed the sum of all the numbers in there. But it's taking the value 20, and now the sum is 20. The next letter is the value 1 for the letter A, and now the sum is 21. And then the next value is a 2 for B, and now the sum is 23. See, because it keeps adding 20 plus 1 plus 2. Now you're at 23. It's going to add in a 9, and you're going to get to the sum of 32. See, 9 is the letter for I. And it just keeps on going until finally it reaches the total value of all the letters in here is 61. If you added T, A, B, I, T, H, A, you get 61 for the summation of all these numbers in the conversion from letters to numbers. Then I put in a little bit of logic. Is the number greater than 1,000? So 61 is not greater than 1,000. Is the number greater than 100? No. Is the number greater than 10? Yes. So there's logic built into my code. And for iteration 1, again, there's several loops inside the code. And it's going to reduce down. It's basically saying, okay, then you have a 6 and you have a 1. Just like I showed you in part 1 of the video where they had a 10, you have 1 plus 0 equals 1. So a 10 is reduced down to a 1. So here the 6 and the 1 breaks down, and the numerological value sum is a 7. And then you can just go ahead and do it again. So this doesn't tell you what the meaning is of 7. It just tells you what the numerological summation value is, gets down to a 7. And what we'll do next in the next part of the video is we'll see the code inside. So I'll take you and walk you through all the code. Okay, so I'm here inside my IDE, my editor, and I just use FBIDE, even though it's just basically Visual Basic Console, but I just prefer using this IDE for what I do. And I wrote this program back in July of 2022. So the way any program would start, you might define some variables as strings and integers. And I've got here things like check word, length of word, check the word value, sums, a few counters in here, IJKN, another counter, and then kind of a trigger to quit. And I'm initializing some values to 0. And this whole code is only like 150 lines, because even though it goes down to 173, it's got a lot of white space in between. So here we are initializing the values, and a couple extra. I like to do it in line. I like to initialize in line sometimes just for the flow of the code. A couple extra variables, some arrays, and then here's the data that populates the array. So the data gets read into the array, which is here, and it's going to read it in and just display it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a data file, because I save the output, and I begin a loop basically for the length of the word that's going to be entered. And so here, this is just clearing the screen and coloring the screen. And so this is what you saw in the beginning of the executable program. It just shows the title, which can be edited, the max length, just some instructions to the user. And then you put in your word. That's why I put Tabitha right there. And then it checked the length of the word Tabitha. And it displayed to the screen this just kind of as a, for the viewer to be able to kind of go back and match up their words. And there's a for loop, which basically is checking the character of each of the words and the value of each of the letters. And then it tells you that you entered a particular word. It has this length in it. We saw that in the executable. And now what it does in this for loop here, it's using the length of the checked word, and it's going through and it's doing the computation and printing the character and the value of the actual character, and it matches to which value it is in the word value. Next, it goes down to the values of the strings are as follows, where I was showing you how it's adding up the different values with the initial sum, and then it loops through, so it knows that there's, like in the word Tabitha, there's seven loops that it has to go through in this for loop. Then it prints out the raw word value sum, the final sum of all the letters, because it's using that to sum them up in value sums. Then here, remember, it asks you a question: is the number greater than 1,000? Is the number greater than 100? Is the number greater than 10? That's what these 3 triggers are, just so that we know that the program understands the size of the number of the word. And then here in this part, it's doing another while loop on the values of the sums, as long as it's greater than 10. And then what it does, this is where it breaks the word up into the parts of the word. So when we have the number 61, this is the code here that breaks up the 61 into the 2 parts, 6 and 1. And it doesn't matter that 6 is 10 times greater than 1, because it's 61, it's in the second column. It's just adding it up as if they were individual numbers, because that's how numerology works. It just wants to add up the individual numbers. So if you had like a 13, it would add up 1 plus 3 would be a 4. And then it would stop and give you the value 4. So if you read the book on numerology on that section there. And then at the end, it just tells you here the numerological values. I chose 6. You remember how it had 1 through 9 in the chapter, and then it had 11, 22. Well, I just chose the number 6 as my trigger number. And so if the summation adds up to 6, it changes the color to 4, which is red. And if it's anything other than 6, it makes the color 7, which I think is white. And so this way it kind of highlights that this number added up to a 6. If you're trying to look for a personality that has a value of 6, then this kind of highlights that. And then it displays a numerological sum value. And then here it just asks you if you want to run the program again. And it just tells you, the word that was tested and its numerological value. And here I'm just playing around with some definitions that really don't mean anything. And at the end, it just has the reset before it loops back. And you get to do it again. But if you put in a 1 and press enter, then you quit. But if n, then down here, when n is equal to 1, the quitter goes to 1 and the program quits. Otherwise, it'll just loop, and then it closes the data file that I'm saving. So what that does is that if I run, say, 10 different words, then I don't have to rerun them. I'll just remember what words I've already tested in here and what their values were. And I could just put in a different word, and it'll continue to append onto my data file. So that's the code behind my numerology program. So I hope you found this video fun and entertaining and useful. It doesn't really mean anything. I just thought that numerology deals with numbers and computer science deals with numbers and programmers deal with numbers. So, is it possible to code numerology into computer code and have the programmatically computed values come out, quicker than having to do it through the tables in the book? So I hope this program was fun and you enjoyed following along with me. And this is Iron Designer, and I am out. Thank you.